Welcome to the CXR channel, our premier podcast for talent acquisition and talent management. Listen in as the CXR community discusses a wide range of topics focused on attracting, engaging, and retaining the best talent. We're glad you're here.
Welcome, everybody, to CXR Podcast. This is Chris Hoyt with Career Crossroads. And I've got with me, of course, one of our new managing directors at CXR, Lars Schmidt. Lars, how are you?
Chris, I'm good, buddy. It's good to be here with you.
Yeah. I always love when we get a chance to connect. And I'm really excited about sort of pumping up a little bit of the volume in terms of podcasts. You bring a really great talent to that. And I think it's going to be really good for CXR and, of course, for our myriad of listeners out there.
Hey, thanks, buddy. I know when we hook onto a topic, we can go, we can run. So I'm excited to dive into a range of things with you.
Well, you know what I want to talk about today, Lars?
What do you want to talk about, buddy?
Lars, I want to talk about job descriptions.
Do we have 3 hours of this podcast? This is going to be a series. This is part one.
Part one of about 100, and each one of them is going to address a different issue that continues to come up with job descriptions or job postings.
Yes, that sounds good. Welcome to volume 00001.
Yeah, well, so the reason this one's a hot topic for me, or hot button for me, and you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, but at Career Crossroads, we do a series of meetings every year, and there's always a topic of focus, right? And one of my favorites, of course, because of my background, is the recruitment, marketing, and branding. And last year, at our marketing and branding, there was not a single exercise or event or activity that we did within the meeting where the topic of communication with candidates did not continually come up.
Yeah.
And what was really interesting, right? What was really interesting this year is that the topic of job descriptions, no matter what we were talking about, the topic of job descriptions came up every single time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Not surprising, but interesting.
Yeah, we could be talking about diversity inclusion. Job descriptions came up. We could have been talking about the topic of communications. Job descriptions came up. We do a session at the end where we say, hey, what didn't we get into? Job descriptions came up. And we certainly got into it, but apparently we didn't go deep enough.
I mean, it's a heated topic. It's something people are really passionate about. And I think for good reason. I think it's the least evolved tool that we have in recruiting, which boggles my mind because we've made so many advances in so many areas, yet we're still writing job descriptions like we did when they were printed, and when applications were faxed in.
Oh my God, they suck. Why do they still suck? We're going into 2020 and job descriptions still suck.
Yeah, I'd love to have a good answer for that. I don't. I think we see pockets of innovation. I think we see examples of companies that are kind of reinventing how they think about it and designing it and kind of right who it's written for. But for the most part, those are outliers. Most of the job descriptions are just retreads of how they've been written for 2 decades.
Oh yeah. Well, and don't even get me started on who owns them, right? Because it usually ranges from comp to some poor coordinator that's sort of been gifted or voluntold that they're going to be rewriting some of these as they get posted. It's insane.
Yeah.
And then you get into formatting. I think one of the job descriptions that was shared with us recently, and I'm not making this up, it was 42 bullet points. There was no intro. There was no sales pitch, right? There was no, here's our brand, here's our people, here's our culture. There was no personalization to it. There wasn't even a call to action at the end. It was just 42 things that apparently somebody somewhere thought you needed to know about that job before you, of course, couldn't wait to apply.
I want to spend some time with the author of that job description. Like what was there? Were they fired up when they finished it? Did they get it done? Like, this is a masterpiece. Look at all this great content I have. Like, I'm going to get solid gold candidates.
I imagine them ripping the paper from the typewriter and throwing the paper down and saying, "This is it. I've nailed it. This is it."
I think so. And sadly, nobody checked that person. Nobody said, "Wait a minute, this is the worst thing you could possibly put on the internet." Well, not the worst thing. This is, there's a lot of bad things on the internet. This is a very bad thing.
We'll put this in the top 47 bad things that are on the internet, but they're too long. They're long-winded. They don't usually represent the company or actually the role in any type of an engaging fashion. And I think that's just such a big miss, especially when, in the last 10 years, Lars, you and I know this just as well as anybody, the evolution of an employment branding team or, a marketing manager within talent acquisition. And of course, in the last 5 years, where we've really seen an entrance into our space of people, coming into TA who don't have TA backgrounds, but who can, oh my gosh, get ready for it, who can write well. Not owning these just still blows my mind.
Well, and I think the way when you look at how they're written, most of the times the general format hasn't evolved. It's a boilerplate about the company. It's a paragraph overview of the job. It's a laundry list of bullets for responsibilities, a laundry list of bullets for qualifications, and an EEOC statement. And if you look across all job descriptions, I would venture to guess that about 80% of what you'd find fit that exact template. And there's so many problems with that. But I think one that is, we don't focus on enough is, as much as we talk about in recruiting, how we have to be mobile optimized for everything, and you have to have a responsive website, and you have to have a streamlined application process. Then you throw a job description that takes 100 scrolls on a mobile device to get through all the content. Nobody's going to do that. Nobody wants to sit through and absorb all of those words for a job. They're just not going to do it.
Yeah, Lars, you're a karaoke guy, aren't you?
You didn't say a good karaoke person, so I can say yes.
So not to call you out specifically, I think you're a great karaoke person. I think we've sung a few songs together, but I think my point is not everyone should be a karaoke singer.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel this, right? I kind of feel the same way about writing a job description. Writing is a talent or a skill that's got to be developed. And man, just not everybody can or should even be writing or trying to tackle those job postings.
Well, they shouldn't. And I think the other thing that is a frustration of mine is so many of the job descriptions are written for the company, right? It's, you will need this, we need this, we need that, we need this. It's all selfish. It's all us. It's they never take the chance to say, okay, well, who's reading this? And how are they going to want to understand the role and the requirements? And how is this job description going to allow them to start envisioning themselves in this job or not? And that's a really important piece that they rarely think about. So it's another way. There's so many easy things companies could do to have their job descriptions stand out. And even just from a copy standpoint, I'm not even touching aesthetics, which is abysmal, right? In terms of just the text heavy format of most job descriptions in a world where everything is a dynamic microsite except for job descriptions.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've always felt really good about asking people in the job description if they're a self-starter. I think it's probably one of my favorite skills that I look for in a candidate is, if you're a self-starter, this is the job for you. That stuff drives me crazy.
Yeah. Hey, look, if you don't have good communication skills and you read that bullet requirement, you're not going to apply. And that's great because we only want good communicators in this job. You must be a good communicator.
Well, and you raise another really good point, right? Is talking about the tough stuff in the JD or the job posting, the hard things to swallow in the job description or within the role, because, I don't think enough companies are willing to put in their JDs that, we don't always only work 40 hours a week. Sometimes we can be in a challenging, more traditional environment. We don't always move at the speed of light. I think being a little more transparent about some of the challenges and the hurdles or the warts is going to allow some candidates to opt out. And quite frankly, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's funny. It's probably 3 years ago now. I was working with a client and I was helping them redesign their job descriptions. And I was the owner of the project, which was great. So I'm like, all right, they wanted to completely rebuild it. I'm like, all right, we're going to do that. And I had a section in there around why you should not take this job. And at first they kind of looked at me like I had three heads. And then I explained the rationale. I'm like, look, this was still in the early days when employer brand was all about entirely focused on selling the sizzle, right? We sold the shit out of our companies to try to get as many people as we could in the pipeline. And we only shared the highlights. We didn't share any of the realness about the job. And I think the field of employer brand has moved that way more now, where we realize that it's more about creating more informed candidates so they can better make their own kind of opt-in or opt-out decision based on the realities of the job. But when we put that job description together, they found that the quality of candidates spiked because they were getting people who were really, it was a well-known brand. It was a sexy brand. So that alone attracted tons of applicants. And when they started putting a section in there saying why you shouldn't apply to this job, those applicants dipped, but they were much more targeted. And I think that I'd love to see more of that in job descriptions, because I think when you can be honest and you can be real, and no company is flawless. No company is perfect. And so if you can't just open up a bit more about the realities of that organization, you're going to get people that are making kind of half-cocked decisions because they don't really understand as much as they could about the organization.
Well, I agree. And I think, you've got at large companies, you've got a really interesting challenge with recruiters where they're measured on speed, right? They're not always measured on quality of candidate or retention of candidate or how that candidate or that employee is rated after they've started. So usually it's truly about, how fast can they get some meat in the seat? And the trouble with that is when we've got these large funnels, in my humble but correct opinion, you've got recruiters that are often running and providing slates that are the 10 last qualified people, not necessarily the 10 most qualified. And I know that's a management issue and a piece, but I got to think that job descriptions and poorly delivered job descriptions and generically written job descriptions are a big part of that puzzle.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, this whole notion of hiring for speed and hiring velocity and that being a measure that which recruiters are evaluated, that's going to be another episode for us, because that's such the wrong way to measure the impact and success of your recruiters. Because when you build all of your incentives around speed, quality is out the door. And not to say, look, all recruiters want to hire good people. They want to bring the best possible person in for the role. But if you're putting artificial pressure on them just to put, again, meat in the seat and hit hiring targets, that's what you're going to get. And that pressure is what dilutes the candidate pool. What dilutes and then you kind of blame the recruiters for that. Hey, you're not getting me great people. Well, look, you're on me if I don't have somebody at an offer stage within 30 days. It incentivizes the wrong behavior in my mind. And I think that's certainly a topic for a future podcast we'll go deeper on.
Yeah, I think you and I have both managed recruiters, in our history and in other lives within recruiting. And I think you absolutely get what you pay for, what they're held accountable for. So, look, I guess bottom line for me is job postings really do provide great opportunities, right, for people to personalize the company and those openings to potential candidates, to potential hires. And while there might be an argument that job postings go away entirely, I think a lot of us can agree that even when that conversation started some 4, 5, 6 years ago, that they're just not going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, they might even be around until maybe 2 or 3 days after job boards die, right? Which is also another podcast. But
yeah,
I think we're still stuck on how and why, right? How and why do we humanize those job postings to attract, engage, and retain the best fit, right? The people that are the best fit for the company. And I just love to know what some other folks are doing about it.
Yeah, well, look, to be honest, I think that's probably going to happen when we stop using the term war for talent. And since that's a zombie slaves that can't saying that can't be killed, I'm not optimistic. I think the reality is, and this is what I would challenge listeners to kind of, the way that they should view your job description. Your job description is your most important employer brand asset. It's the most seen asset. It's going to have the most eyeballs. It's going to have the most engagement. So treat it that way. Treat it as an employer brand asset, because that's exactly what it is. And I think you're going to get a much higher quality of candidate that is much more kind of on target with what you're looking for and what the environment can support.
Nailed it. Couldn't agree more. Lars, thanks so much for cutting out some time today. I'm glad we got to connect on this topic. It's one, obviously, we've got some experience and some passion around, and we can certainly talk trash about all day long.
Likewise, Chris. I think this is the first of many of these fun conversations. So looking forward to riffing with you some more.
Good stuff. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the CXR channel. Please subscribe to CXR on your favorite podcast resource and leave us a review while you're at it. Learn more about CXR at our website, cxr.works, facebook.com and twitter.com/careercrossroads, and on Instagram @careerxroads. We'll catch you next time.